Hello and welcome to Steptoe and Son, a podcast based at Mews Cottage, 26A, Aldrum Lane, Shepherd's Bush. This is the home of the world's most famous rag and bone men, or as Harold would say,
Salvage recovery operative.
my name is Darren.
And I'm his co-host Si, also known as Two of the Three Convenios podcasts that we co-host along with the amazing Tom from One Foot in the Podcast. You might also know me from Don't Forget Your Goodbye Gherkins, the Men Behaving Badly rewatch podcast, all things MBB related.
I've also been previously a guest on the Jolly Boys podcast, All Things Only Fools and Horses. As you've guessed it, our favourite sitcom is Steptoe and Son. The show ran for 8 series on BBC from 1962 to 1974 and even spawned 2 feature films. Such was the series' popularity in the mid-1960s that the cast specially recorded several episodes for BBC Radio.
In the year 2000, the show was ranked number 44 on the 100 greatest British television programmes compiled by the British Film Institute. The 2001 Channel 4 poll, Albert was ranked 39th on their list of the 100 greatest TV characters.
We plan to review episodes, chat to fans of the show, and maybe even chuck in the odd quiz. We hope you enjoy listening. Please check out the pod on Spotify, Insta, Twitter, and all other platforms. Hello, Tyler, you okay?
Just about. Hang on 1 minute. I'm just going to get my video
No problem.
sorted.
Ah, there you go.
Hi.
I can see how you're doing, your eyes.
Yeah, although, oh bloody hell, I'm in a different room.
Ah, okay.
Because the room upstairs is being decorated that I normally use, so I'm having to sit down in the front room on a couch. So it's not conducive to good podcasting, but hey, doesn't matter.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, you'd be fine as long as you got a bit of room. But yeah, I like that. What's that behind on the wall? Is that that's almost Steptoe-esque?
It is. Thank you.
I mean that in a positive way.
It is a John Lewis wire stag head thing that lights up that my wife bought.
Well, yeah. So I normally just sort of start as we do, just a bit more, a bit like Chatterbix, just organic, just go into it rather than sort of do a big intro. But yeah, hopefully. So again, as I say, welcome to Aldrum Lane. Mind where you put your feet, the horse. See.
Oh yeah. Is it just you, or is it?
Yeah. Apologies, I was going to explain. Si can't make it tonight. He's I think he said he was shifting a piano in a high-rise flat in London. No, I'm kidding. No, he can't be with us tonight, but no, he sends his regards anyway. But I think I'm back with him recording again soon.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you managed to listen to any of the other episodes.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, very good. I mean, you tend to do 2, don't you? At a time.
Yeah, what we normally do is because we thought in the beginning, I thought if we pick 2 episodes each series, and I'll pick one, Si picks one. And then we do a sort of rundown of the whole series. So that way now we've done series 1 to 8. We've just done the first Steptoe film. Good friend of the pod, Tony. So I think that's out end of this week. And then we always go back, with a view to go back and do. Because I don't think we did the Desperate Hours or anything like that. So there was some really good episodes that we sort of didn't get a chance to review. So. We left it open. So, but yeah, so so fans of the show might recognise, well, fans of the Goon pod, as I should say, might recognise you. I'm joined tonight by Tyler, creator of the Goon pod, and you've also been on One Foot in the Pod with our friend Tom.
Yeah, I've been on loads of podcasts actually. That was an early one. I was on talking about. Was it Wisdom of the Witch? I think.
Yeah. Or Wisdom of the Bitch, I think you changed it to.
Yeah. I mean, I love One Foot in the Grave. I love Steptoe. I love British comedy of a certain. Well, I like all British comedy, not all, but of any sort of era. But I do sort of tend to look back to what you might call the golden age, I suppose, and. Steptoe and Son has always been. It's probably up there in my top 5 sitcoms of all time. And I was never a Hancock fan.
No,
particularly. No. But I just found, I don't know, just something about Hancock never appealed to me particularly. But Galton and Simpson, I feel, stepped up a gear when they did Steptoe.
Yeah,
And I must point out, by the way, we're talking about a particular episode that I nominated.
yeah.
I got the episode wrong, okay,
Uh,
because the episode that I thought My Old Man's a Tory was actually the episode called, I think it's called T for Two,
T for two. Oh, okay.
where Harold is protesting that the notion that is Edward Heath going to potentially go for
Yeah, he's
tea?
I think yeah, Albert somehow arranges that the Right Honourable Ted Heath is going to visit, and you get these sort of smarmy, I suppose they call them reps that come out first and just
That's
sort of
right.
suss out the yard, and they
Yep.
say, can you make sure you got this tea, that sort of thing, and then but then to scupper it, Harold says, because he can't sort of convince the old man not to go ahead with it. So he says he's going to just strip off and walk around naked because there's no law against that in your own home.
That's it.
So
Yeah.
that's his way of protest. So,
No, I love that episode, but I got it mixed up with this one.
okay. I was
Which
going
I
to say
have.
that's not the one we prepared.
No, I know. But
Yeah,
to be fair, I have seen My Old Man's Tory before.
yeah.
I just got the two mixed up. But it was a entertaining episode to watch. But yeah, there's that little bit of conflation there. So
Yeah, well, they're both probably the two most similar episodes, really, because it's political.
yeah,
But yeah, my old man's a Tory because this, what I think, what we series 4,
yeah,
episode 6. It's in black and white. I think it was one of the ones that sort of when the BBC had that big deletion of shows, and it was sort of rescued, I think, by the personal collection of I think Galton.
mm.
Ray Galton's managed to save some because I was going to say that this episode's is quite poor visual quality
It is. It
compared
is.
to a lot of the others. I mean, these earlier episodes are much better quality than this one. But I
The
think,
sound's good though.
yeah, the sound is brilliant. But I think it's like a lot of the Galton and Simpson, what they wrote was it's almost like a stage sort of radio play. So
Mm.
I think the visually it might not be what's the point I'm getting at is that the dialogue and I think the script is still holds up. Because
Mm.
I've listened to most of the radio shows, if not all of them, and there's
Hmm.
never a lot of difference between that and the TV
Hmm.
version. I think originally they wrote, say, sort of series 1 and 2. It was almost as if it was going to be on the radio because they hadn't sort of quite got used to the TV, way of doing things yet. But
Yeah, it's a good point. And because it's always generally a two-hander, isn't
a
it? With
two-hander, yeah, and it's very
how,
like dialogue heavy, isn't it?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
sometimes it's sort of like 11 minutes of pure dialogue. There's no cutaway, and so yeah, I think. But like you said, I think they perfected it. I think for many reasons, but by this point, getting the two brilliant actors involved that they did, and of course the British Marlon Brando that they call him.
Who's looking quite. I'm not going to say. I don't know. I mean, you see in this episode, you see Harry H. Corbett in a very holy vest, in a
Yeah.
terrible moth-eaten vest, but he's
Wow.
looking quite buff, if I do say so. He's looking quite. You can see how how he got that
Yeah,
kind of reputation for being the British Marlon Brando.
yeah, I know. Yeah, I think that's it's a big compliment for him, obviously, and I think he's worthy of it. Looks and I suppose as in acting ability.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was yeah, I think we'd get to series 4 at this point. Obviously, we're well established, as a sitcom.
Hmm.
As Steptoe, I think we've got the date it was first aired, I believe, was Monday, November the 8th, 1965. And it blows my mind because between series 4 and 5, you've got a 5-year gap. And
Yeah.
it always blows my mind that that's such a long time in it for a
Oh, was it
sitcom.
actually? Sorry, was it? So this was the last series in black and white. Then was this or not?
Yeah, so you had this one was 1965, and then the next series was 1970. Unless I've got that very wrong, but but yeah, I think this is quite sporadic. So series 5. Yeah, so series 5, which is it's definitely
Yeah.
not the last black and white one
No,
because
it's not, is it?
no, it seems to okay. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, series 4 ended, we then resumed with series 5, episode 1, Death in the Family,
Hmm.
which is still black and white. And then series 6 is November the 2nd, 1970. So there's 2 in a year there. And then we've got Come Dancing, which is episode 2, and that's in colour.
Mm.
And then we've got Cuckoo in the Nest. That was a good one. We've been side reviewed. That's December 1970, so that's in colour, and then obviously colour from there onwards.
Yeah,
But
but
yeah,
this was the last series broadcast in black and white, if you know what I mean.
yeah, I know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was. But as I said, it's weird parallels to 24s and Horses because they had the 5-year gap as well, if you recall. So it was the 1997, and then I
Oh,
think
of
they came
course.
back.
Well, that was meant to be the last ever, wasn't it? The
Yeah,
trilogy, whatever it was called. Heroes and Villains, was it? Was that what it was called? Or
yeah, that one. Yeah, so it was supposed to, like you said, it's supposed to end then, and then obviously they came back.
I've heard you talking about. I've listened to obviously some previous episodes. There are a lot of parallels just in terms of the dynamic with between Steptoe and Only Fools in terms
Definitely,
of
yeah.
the relationship between I suppose it's more the relationship between Dell and Granddad or Uncle Albert.
Mm,
Um, and well, I don't know because saying all that, Albert is an antagonist, isn't he?
yeah.
Really, I mean, his heart's in the right place, and he clearly loves Harold, but he is often an antagonist, and I don't suppose you couldn't really say that Granddad or Albert were antagonists causing
No,
issues.
I suppose like Uncle Albert. I suppose because there's so many similarities there, especially like there's the one, with whenever they got in financial trouble, he'd go and fall down a hole, throw
Yeah.
himself down the cellar to make money, and then that does happen in I think it's the Siege of Steptoe Street.
Yes.
You don't
Yeah.
actually see it, but Albert is upstairs and you hear sort of a crash bang wallop, and then Harold runs over and they threaten to sue. I think it's Mr. Lacey, the butcher. Of course, he's not injured really,
Yeah.
and he uses it to.
How often does Albert Steptoe pretend that he's either been the victim of an accident or he's got some sort of ailment which he doesn't have? I'm just thinking like you discussed oh, what was it? The episode where he pretends he's been burgled and
Oh,
beaten up.
robbery with
That
violence.
was it. Yeah.
Yeah,
And you've got the one where upstairs, downstairs, upstairs, downstairs, where he's
oh, with
pretending
his
he's got a
back.
bad back or something.
Yeah, I think it starts off as genuine, doesn't it? And then he
Oh, it
start
does.
he
And then
stretches,
he
pulls
starts
his back.
jiving
Yeah, and
to the radio.
that's it. Yeah, it's a great clip of that. But yeah, he does. You're all right though. He's such a. I think it's because he's so afraid of being alone, and he prevents Harold from finding love or getting married. He does everything he can just to keep the status quo, doesn't he? Just to keep it all
Yeah,
as is. But
he's scared.
mm,
Harold's got notions that Albert would never. You know, Harold wants to better himself, and to Albert, that's just complete
yeah.
anathema.
Well, it's
Um,
linked to this episode, doesn't it? Really, with the way they think and
yeah,
political views. Father and son with polar opposite political views.
yeah, yeah.
It's quite surprising, really. But I don't
Hmm.
know if you want to. Oh, I think I was going to say was obviously you're from New Zealand.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, no, I've listened to so I'm not a massive. I don't think my knowledge of the Goon Show is anywhere near yours.
No,
And I'd say, like I said, as a kid growing up, I was a big fan of Spike Milligan. Obviously, the madcap sort of bonkers character that he was. Um, but yeah, I've listened to like a few episodes. Like I heard the one most recently with Rory McGrath.
oh yeah. Hmm.
I thought it was a really good interview that, and it was quite eye opening.
Yeah.
Particularly the Frankie Howard
The
bit.
Frankie Howard story. Yeah.
Yeah, I was because I didn't know anything about that, and
Oh, I mean, I've interviewed Griff Rhys Jones as well, and he more or less, he didn't tell me the same story, but he worked with Frankie Howerd when he was a young producer, Griff, and he told me that Frankie didn't actually try anything on with him, but he kind of Griff knocked on his dressing room door, and Frankie answered it wearing nothing but a pair of gold lame underpants, kind of thing, you know.
Oh,
But the thing I would say, look, I mean, it started out, Goonpod started out as a tribute and a salute to the Goon Show, and it's evolved, and yes, we still talk about the Goons, but we talk about Sellers and Milligan
yeah.
individually, you know, their sort of solo stuff, and more I'm inching towards we just talk about great comedy, classic comedy.
Mhm.
Um,
I was
you
going to say
know,
the most recent one I listened to was the Lady Killers, with Graham, because I loved that as a kid. Hello, Mrs. Wilberforce, you have a room to
Room to
let.
Let, yes,
Yeah,
Alec
he's so
Guinness.
brilliant in that, Alec Guinness, isn't he?
Oh, he's wonderful. Um,
Yeah,
I think I described him, if I could quote myself, I described him as looking like an unmade bed in that film.
yeah,
Um, no, we talk about, yeah, I mean, that's a great film. We talk, and Sellers is only in it kind of, he's what, sixth or seventh down the cast list. You know,
yeah.
it's his
He's not
first.
not the star.
Oh, certainly not. No. So we will talk about films that have, you know, generally speaking, Sellers in, but that will then lead off into a conversation about, you know, other actors, other comedians, other comic actors, and the, you know, things that were happening in the world that you know, the time the film came out, and we just, you know, I mean, next week on Goonpod, we're talking about the Man About the House movie
Oh,
from
okay.
1974 because Spike's in that about 90 seconds. He's in that for
That's
about
it.
90 seconds, and I think we
That's
mentioned
enough.
him. We talk about him for maybe 3 minutes, and the rest of
Yeah,
it is just talking about stuff, comedy, you know.
yeah.
Um,
I always
so
wonder like how like Steptoe went sort of. I think it was Dutch version of it. It was obviously the American version, Sanford and Son, but
mhm.
they play on more race rather than the class system. But like, how did it go down in New Zealand? It was obviously the infamous New Zealand tour they did. Have you got any
Yeah.
sort of? You're probably too young, but any recollection of that at the time
No,
or?
no, I'm not that old to remember that because I think that was
Uh,
around the time I was born. I think
yeah,
I
yeah,
was born in 74,
yeah,
so it was around that time. Um, by the way, just on the US Sanford and Son, there was because I mentioned this on a Goon Pod a couple of weeks ago because we did an episode about Associated London Scripts,
yeah.
which obviously was Spike and Eric Sykes, but also Ray and Alan. They were
Ah, right.
setting up. It's like a writers collective. So we talked quite a bit about Ray and Alan on that episode, and I mentioned that there was an earlier pilot, American pilot of Steptoe and Son, years before Sanford and Son, called Steptoe and Son,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
and it and it was. Have you seen that? It's not
No,
very
I, I,
good.
I sure I read about it the other week when what didn't it? I think they made it. I'm trying to think who was in it. He was quite a well-known actor. Um,
Aldo Ray or something. Is
Aldo
that his
Ray,
name?
that's it. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I think we Googled him and yeah, he was quite an established actor, but
Mm,
it was a bit bizarre how it came about because I think Galton Simpson got, but from reading I don't, we quote this book quite often, the Robert Ross book.
mm,
It says in there about how they sort of went to America at one point. They thought they were going to sort of write it and get involved, and they just sat around for weeks in a hotel waiting for them, to be, called up or to be told what to do.
yeah.
And then I think a couple of years went by and nothing happened, and it was all very much delayed. I think between that pilot being made and Sanford and Son was about 6 years.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
it was all a bit strange. I think they were getting sort of well paid for it, but I think they were just, like I said, frustrated at the delay and how nothing was happening.
Mm,
Very
yeah.
different to British, the British way of doing a sitcom.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And sorry, just to get back to your question, um, yeah, Steptoe was huge in New Zealand when I was, well, I was aware. I can't remember when I first was aware of it, but it was always kind of there, I think. And my dad was a huge comedy fan. My dad was Northern Irish, but lived in New
Okay, yeah,
Zealand for 30 odd years by the time I was born, you know, or
yeah,
20 odd years. But he got me into comedy like Steptoe, into the Goons, into Fall and Rise of Reginald Perrin, and just
Yeah.
things like that, Um, and I remember we got a VHS, a video recorder, around about the mid 80s. I want to say 86, maybe 87. And one of the very first things I ever taped, because it was always being repeated in the 80s, Steptoe and Son, or only the color
Okay.
episodes of
Yeah.
Steptoe, obviously. So what's that? The ones that exist, series um, 7 and 8, I
7 and 8.
suppose,
Yeah.
mainly.
So,
One of the first things I ever recorded was A Star Is Born.
oh, okay. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah.
And I only recorded that. This is the weird thing, right? At the time, I would have been 12, 13. I was obsessed with Are You Being Served? More than Steptoe. More than Steptoe. I don't think I'd
The
really
Rumble.
yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
I'd properly watched Steptoe and Son at that point, but I recorded that episode of Steptoe and Son purely and simply because I'd read in the sort of TV listing magazine that Trevor Bannister was the guest star in it. Trevor Bannister played the rather effete uh, theatre director in A Star Is
Okay.
Born. And he also played Mr. Lucas in Are You Being Served?
I was going to say, yeah, I've seen him before. I think is he the one that comes into Harold's dressing room? Oh no,
No,
it's
he
Rupert
he's
the
the one,
famous Muir.
Rupert. Yes, he's the one with
That's it,
the
beg your
horn rimmed
pardon, yeah.
glasses. Yes,
He's got
um,
the bladder issue.
that's right. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So he was
yeah.
Mr. Lucas in Are
He
You Being
was,
Served?
yeah.
So I taped that because he was in it more than the fact that it was a Steptoe episode. Does that make sense?
Right.
And then I loved the episode, and then I started watching more
Yeah.
Steptoe, and that's how I really got into it.
Well, it's the I think like the other week we recorded when it because it coincided with the bottom documentary the other week.
Mm, yeah, great.
And I've always said that like people are probably sick of me saying it, but about how I don't think you would have had Only Fools and Horses without Steptoe. I think it'd be totally different. I don't think bottom would be the same. And I'm glad that Ada Edmondson brought up how much bottom was influenced by um, Steptoe. Because I think he even said at one point he was amazed Goldman Simpson didn't sue him because some of it is like direct bits,
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
Scrabble, the chess, the
yes,
TV, it's all. But I don't like. I'm still a massive fan of Bottom. I'm a huge Rick Mail fan. I
yeah.
don't see it as plagiarized. I don't see it as they've copied it. I see they just took it to a different level.
No, because you've got Richie, who's idealistic, head in the clouds,
Thinks
and
he's
then
slightly above everyone.
yeah, and then you've got Eddie, who's down to earth and I won't say common as muck, but he's got no airs or graces about him.
Yeah.
And I would say one of the big influences on Bottom, which I would say the same about Steptoe, I think, is Thomas Beckett is like Waiting for Godot and things like that.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of Pinter in someone
Mhm.
kind of sound I sound like a wanker saying that, but you know what I mean.
No, he's right. No, I mean, Waiting for Godot. I mean, they quote in the bottom documentary, don't
Mm,
they? And they said about how it. I suppose it's the. I think this is why I love it as well, is because I watched it as a child with my dad. We always used to joke we were a bit steptoe because I was just raised by my dad. We didn't have a
right.
horse though, and that's about the only similarity we had to Steptoe, was it? But I always just found how it's almost like, especially the first few series, it's almost like comedy is the second aim at it. It's sort of like it's so
Mm,
tragic.
mm,
I mean, it opens with The Offer, and
mm,
it's about a man who's reached his late 30s and he's so desperate to get away and have some sort of life. I
yeah.
mean, it doesn't sound like a comedy, does it? It's just so tragic, but it's like the tragic mixed with the humor. Um, so
Well,
yeah, I
there's
think
a fine line between comedy and tragedy, isn't there?
yeah, I think they found it, really well.
Yeah, I think Hancock and forgive me because I'm no Hancock scholar.
No, I don't
I've
mind.
listened to plenty of Hancock on the radio, I mean, and seen some of the TV stuff, but to me, Hancock is just or was just a comedy show with as my friend would say, a gag delivery system, basically. Whereas Steptoe, there's great sort of there's episodes where you can go for a couple of minutes without there being a joke, where
Yeah,
there's just pathos. There's just this great character study between this tug of war between these two, these two men.
Well, I think like what you mentioned, The Star is Born. I think that's such a, by this point, Harry Corbett, he's so typecast. He can't do anything else. And the fact that they, at the end, the final line is, I'm a rag and bone man. And that's all I'll ever be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really brave line to give him, isn't it? Considering he's wrestling with, is my career dead apart from Steptoe? I can't go and do Hamlet because people are going to be saying, you dirty old man. I can't, from his point of view, couldn't do anything. So I thought it was really brave to do that. But yeah, you're right. I think this, like weirdly, before we started the pod, I'd seen most of sort of the early series, but admittedly I hadn't seen all of them. And going back and sort of reviewing and rewatching them, there's not bags and bags of comedy in it. It's not sort of written for, whereas the 7 and 8 is set up gag, and then
that's true.
It's very different. I think it's probably why the latter ones get shown more than the early ones.
Well, yeah, also because TV is terrified of showing anything black and white these days.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like that guy by saying that, but it's true. They don't want to potentially lose viewers by having something black and white, which is understandable, I suppose.
There's a lot of competition though. There's no Netflix in the 60s.
No, there was.
No.
They
got a lot of competition, but
yeah.
I don't. Should we hit play on?
Yes.
So we are going to rewatch and review Series 4, Episode 6, Mild Man's a Tory. Having bought a Ganex Mac like Harold Wilson, Harold hopes to be chosen as the ward's new Labour candidate and calls it a party meeting. Watched by a baleful Tory supporting Albert. However, Albert comes to his son's defence when the local party agent, Stonelake, announces that Harold has not been selected as the prospective candidate because he is too working class and the party are out to court the middle class vote.
Alright, I can see ya. You flatten my horse and you get my wheels right along the side of your roads, mate. You want to do a day's work? What do you expect me to do? Doff me hat and curtsy? You off to the golf course, are you? You're a bit late, it's 2:30. Have you had a hard day? Parasite. Then somebody do all the work and copying all the profits. That's like my old man, another rotten Tory.
Delusions of grandeur, that's what it is. Them long-haired intellectual layabouts filling him up with daft ideas all about men being equal. And now he's sticking all them posters over my house. Let's go with Labour. Yeah. Why don't they leave the running of the country to them that's been trained for it? Now, let's get that lot down. And this lot up. Vote Carter Brown, your Conservative candidate.
And just this is from nearly 60 years ago, and the synopsis you read out there and by the way, I'm naturally a Labour supporter. Yes, I am, but I'm not. I would describe myself as very much sort of centrist dad, right? So I've never been. But you read out that synopsis that could apply to, I suppose the Labour Party over the last sort of 5-6 years, really.
Well, definitely. I mean, I had to be a bit careful when I said the one thing because it says new Labour candidate, not new Labour candidate.
Oh yeah.
So it's it was quite funny reading that, but
yeah.
But yeah, no, you are right. I was raised very working class, very Labour, being Welsh as well. We don't like the Tories. Yeah, he's going to get political this episode, but I mean, again, I think I'm slightly changing now. Still would never vote Conservative, but I think it's interesting to have, like I said, you've got Harold now who's returned to the yard, and plastered all over the yard is vote Tory. Obviously, he's just rocked up with a massive vote Labour sign.
Oh God! Look at that. Vote for Carter Brown. I'll murder him when that lot's coming down for a start. Where are you? Come out here, you horrible, lonesome little wart.
and this kind of, it's a bit like it's the same as with Alf Garnett. The working class men of a certain age, or working class men in general, who vote conservative.
Mm.
The cliche is it's turkeys voting for Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they say there's a couple of phrases like there's nothing worse than a working class Tory. Not
mm,
my words, but I
mm,
have heard that, and I think it reminds me a bit of Jim Davidson
mm.
because he was, a working class man, but then he was very much. I think in the 80s he'd go campaigning with the Tory party.
Yeah.
I can't remember who it was, but it was a specific politician he aligned himself with. But it does make you wonder sort of how, like I said, the fact that they're both polar opposite, how is it that Harold is very much a Labour supporter when he's raised by his dad, who's very right wing?
Well, the weird thing is, I could kind of relate to a degree because my parents, certainly my late mother, my mother was very active politically, but she was not very, but she was the Kiwi equivalent of the Tories. My mother was
Oh, okay,
a member of that party, and she would campaign or she would go out canvassing
yeah,
for that. And my father, to a certain degree, was the same. I've kind of not railed against that, not deliberately, but I've grown up with a completely different mindset or different sort of political viewpoint.
yeah, yeah,
And I think that happens a lot in families. And the thing is, you can understand, working class people, certainly back then, back in the 60s or 70s, if they've made a bit of money
mm,
and money is the driving factor for them, you can kind of understand why they might be
definitely,
voting for the Tories. But someone like Albert Steptoe, and it
yeah,
says, they say in the episode, Harold says, you haven't got two pennies to rub together, but you're running around shouting hands off the stock exchange.
yeah.
Um,
He's he's just returned to the art now. He's just said to the old man, "Come out, you loathsome little wart." And it was just yeah. Sorry to interrupt there, but no, but no, it's right though, and it is. I mean, everyone's entitled to their own views, but I just don't know. It is baffling how the old man is. But like you said, he is all about money. It's all about earning money, and like Labour were well known that they'd be high taxes and
mm.
they'd invest money, but they'd also be high taxes. And whereas I think the Conservatives, I remember as a kid, they would campaign on low taxes. They'd say,
Mm.
if Labour come in, all the rates will go up and they'll crash the economy. And
Oh,
so,
they're all even now. The Tories are always predicting Armageddon if Labour
yeah,
ever gets into power. And
yeah,
I think it also, I think with there's a great tradition of, God, this sounds patronizing to say this, but a great tradition of working class men who are socially conservative as well in terms of their, they don't like change. They're not progressive in terms of
yeah,
mindset. So they will tend to gravitate towards the conservatives rather than Labour, who Labour certainly back then was
yeah, yeah,
seen as dreamers or idealists or equality and namby-pamby kind of
yeah,
politics, I
definitely.
suppose.
The left wing, it was definitely seen as that when it was. I think. I mean, even Labour now. I mean, they're very much they're more central. Like, there's no left wing Labour MPs now. Like you used to have. Oh, what was the guy named the Beast of Ball?
Oh, Dennis Skinner.
Dennis Skinner. I mean, he's no one at all like that.
No,
The firebrand sort of
no,
shouting left wing. He came from the mines and worked his way up and.
yeah.
But yeah, so and you've got with Keir Starmer now. He's done his best to get rid of anything like Corbyn. Anything that reminds him of Jeremy
Well,
Corbyn. He's like, get rid
I'm,
of
I'm,
it.
yeah, I might lose listeners for saying this. I'm adopting a wait and see attitude with regards to Starmer in terms of I'm hoping and hoping and hoping that he's just being so ultra cautious so he can get into power. And then once he's in power, he'll then start to like maybe bring in some, well, not radical, but some some real change.
Yeah, just somewhat progressive, and
Yeah,
they just mentioned on the. I think Harold brought up Teddy then, and again, he's very really relevant. He just said about how was it Albert left school at age 8 or something, and he was like compulsory education to the age of 8. Goes, with your education, why are you a rag and bone? But
yeah, why aren't you an ambassador for the UN?
Yeah, as he's here, and he's what's Albert wearing? He's got like a threadbare cardigan that's hanging off him.
Yeah.
I don't need cudgels to back up my beliefs. I shall be able to demolish any one of your arguments by sheer intellectualism.
That'll be the day.
I have a built-in advantage over you, because, you see, whereas my beliefs is sincerely held, the result of years of observation, deep thought and rationalisation, your particular brand of squalid, nasty, anti-social opinion are directly attributable to a basic desire to get right up my shonker.
Get stuff.
Oh, hello. Oh, hello, hello. Here's the public school coming out at him again.
Don't you try to tell me why I think the way I do. I've been a Tory ever since I left school.
When you was 8, wasn't it? They used to poke you up the chimneys, didn't they?
No, they didn't. And I didn't leave school until I was 10.
Compulsory education to the age of 10? Oh, the mind boggles. Oh, Father, I really fail to understand why you chose this profession. I mean, surely with an education like that you've got behind you, it was a toss-up between the church, the army, or the foreign office.
Harold is just, he's got ideas above his station, if you like. As far as Albert's concerned, he has. And I just love that they're complete chalk and cheese, the two characters, and I gather the two actors as well. I know there's that kind of received wisdom that Bramble and Corbett really didn't get on, but I think they did, more or less, didn't they?
Yeah, they must have, because I mean, you can't work with someone for 13 years and detest them.
No.
I mean, what money, but I mean, in the beginning, you could say, oh, it was because they were on, I think at one point they were on £1,000 each per episode. And, those days, that was a lot of money. But, but I mean, you can't, once you've made it, you can't keep, because it is quite a punishing schedule, especially the tour. And I think they polar opposite political views. And, you had Wilfred Bramble was very much on his own. I mean, he had no sort of family or anything, and he wouldn't socialise with Goldman Simpson or Harry H. Corbett. I think that's commented quite a lot about, that he wouldn't go out for a drink or anything with them afterwards. I don't think he even like rehearsing really. And you've got Harry H. Corbett, family man, very much bit of a party animal, very outgoing, loved the fame. So I think they're just chalk and cheese really, but they both respected that they would respect, each of them was good at their own craft. They had different methods, but they were both brilliant actors.
Yeah, they were. I mean, you do see often, particularly in the later series, understandably, I suppose, Bramble often stumbles over his lines, doesn't he? But
that's the gin.
Yeah, but he's also, I saw in this episode, he's I may be wrong, but I'm convinced he's looking at cue cards a couple of times in this episode. Maybe not. I know Hancock used to do that as well, but
that's a good point. Yeah. I just got to the bit where Harold, the irony of it, he's saying he's making a bid to be chairman, and he stood there in a vest that's just it's got more holes in it than
it's more holes than vest, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I do this all the time. I always go off on tangents, but I love the character. I mean, my favorite character in Steptoe is Harold.
Yeah.
I like Albert as well, but is this heresy for me to say this? He's not my favorite character played by Wilfred Bramble in his career.
Oh, okay. Right. That's interesting.
I like Albert, don't get me wrong, but I absolutely adore the character he plays in A Hard Day's Night.
I was going to say, was it the bit, the very clean old man?
Yes, Paul's granddad. I just think that is absolute masterclass in low level villainy, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I think we mentioned that about how like the Beatles would you couldn't get bigger at that time than the Beatles could
No,
do. Just
no.
shows the fame Wilford Bramble had. The fact that
Mm.
he was, being paid and asked to be in a film with the Beatles. I mean, that's massive. What's the equivalent of that now?
I don't know, but the thing is, as well, obviously they keep there's a running gag that in A Hard Day's Night that Paul's granddad is very clean, and that's all there's no context given to that. And if Steptoe and Son had lasted, because that had only been what 2 series by the time A Hard Day's Night came out, 64, I think, something like that.
Yeah, it's about that. Yeah.
I mean, it could easily have maybe you know
Mm.
staggered on for another series or two and then disappeared and it had been that could have been Steptoe could be absolutely forgotten today if it had if it
Yeah,
hadn't gone on, you know what I mean, and that
definitely.
joke, that line in Hard Day's Night would be completely meaningless
It's just
to modern viewers.
yeah. It's a very like of its time reference that has
Yes,
seems to have lasted. But I think
yes,
it's yeah, Wilford Bramley, he went off. I don't know if you're aware, he went off to America to do a
yeah.
stage play,
Mm.
and it folded after the one night. It was a massive flop, and he came back and asked to be sort of written back in. But they did have Goldman Simpson had another idea lined up that Harold was going to be joined by his son,
That's
and they
right.
were going to start off with the old man that died, but obviously Bramble came back, asked for his job back, and he just carried on as if nothing had happened. So no, you're right, really. Yeah, that could have ended there. I think
wasn't
it was
there a
about series 4.
wasn't there a parallel again with Only Fools and Horses? Wasn't David Jason going to leave and John
Yeah,
Sullivan had
Hot
this
Rod.
idea of Hot Rod or Hot Rods? Hot Rod, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, Hot Rod. Yeah, that blows my mind because I mean, how would that have ever worked with just Nicholas Lyndhurst and
Was it
Uncle
Mickey
Alvin?
Pierce? Was it going to
Yeah,
be Mickey
that's
Pierce? And yeah,
it's just so strange the thought of it. Without David Jason.
yeah,
It was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, I think the episode, wasn't it? When Jumbo Mills offers him that chance to work in Australia,
yes,
and he turns it down, obviously with family ties, and because
yeah.
Rodney couldn't go because he had a record for uh, what was it? He smoked a Rastafarian Old Hoban,
It's right. Yeah,
and it was on his record, so he couldn't go. But, he's
and
going all
and
that
that,
way
that
to be a car cleaner.
and that again, the tradition in British comedy of an older man and a younger man, because you've got obviously this Steptoe, you've got Fools and Horses, you've got Porridge.
I was gonna say porridge, yeah,
Yeah,
that's with Godber, and I'd
yeah.
never thought of that link.
It
Yeah,
seems to work, doesn't it?
yeah. Just
Um,
to recap on the episode, we've now
mm,
Albert has decided to completely switch views and join Harold because he's realised they could if if Harold becomes the Labour candidate, they can make a lot of money
yeah,
in the building
exactly.
contracts and things. But yeah, so we've just cut to a picture of Harold Wilson with the Mac and the pipe. And then you've got the old man who walks in and puts 2 fingers up to it
And Harold's wearing a Wilson coat.
indoors.
Yeah. I on Goompod, I do like whenever we're talking about a film, I do like to look at what was going on in the world of interest around the
Yeah.
time that the film was released or TV episode goes out, right? And I just had to look at what was going on uh, in the world when this episode came out, and I kind of I cheated a bit. I sort of looked because this was broadcast in November '65, and I looked at what was going on in October and November '65 just to broaden it out a bit. But
Hmm.
and we were saying about the Beatles. It was when the Beatles received their MBEs at Buckingham Palace, and
Ah.
and so the rumor goes smoked grass in the Buckingham Palace toilets. That's
Oh, you
the
kidding? Oh,
that's that's the
that's
that's
rock and
the
roll.
that's the story. Yeah, Steve Coogan was born around this time,
Oh, wow.
and Hindley and Brady were arrested around this time.
Oh
So
Christ, that's a mixed bag there.
it is, yeah.
It's funny you say about the Beatles because I just clicked then. There's a later episode where Harold and Albert are talking. I think they're talking about Albert's medals, and Harold says, "I thought you sent them back when the Beatles were awarded the OBE."
Yeah.
I don't know if I didn't make that up, did I? I'm sure I remember
Oh no,
that.
that was a big thing.
That's a funny reference, isn't it?
Well, no, because it was famously, yeah, when the Beatles got MBEs and Wilson awarded them, trying to trade on their popularity. Basically, it was naked political machinations. Really, there was nothing. It was just he wanted to be seen to be endorsing the Beatles. But there were so many outraged, army majors and whatnot who saw this as the thin end of the wedge and sent back their OBEs or MBEs or whatever it was, in protest.
I don't blame them because I mean, before that, I don't think any other pop band, however you describe them, would have been given an OBE. That's a real change in there.
I think he justified it, Wilson, by saying it was because of the amount of money they'd brought into Britain in terms of, I don't know, record sales or whatever.
I mean, you get some questionable decisions now, don't you? People getting their OBEs and MBEs.
Yeah.
But that's probably, I mean, that shocked a lot of people, I'd imagine, especially in those days.
And John later returned his MBE in protest over, God, what was it? John Hanratty, I think. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that, but no, it was around this time. So, and of course, they talk about Vietnam in this episode as well, which has really surprised me, because it's 1965.
Good evening, comrades. I declare this meeting open. And the first item on the agenda is the reading of the minutes of the last meeting. Do you have the minute book, Miss Frobisher, please?
Yes, of course. Comrade.
Hello. You're all right there, Harold.
Minutes of a meeting of the Ravensbury Ward Committee on Thursday, the 17th of September, held at number 32 Oil Drum Lane. Those present: Harold Steptoe, Chairman; Miss Karen Frobisher, Treasurer; and Mr. Arthur Biggs.
Was that all? Just 3?
Yes. Well, we usually has more, but, there was that tummy trouble going around, if you remember, and then again...
Queen's Park Rangers were at home.
Queen's Park Rangers? We had nothing to do with it!
They lost, too.
Shut up. Will you please keep quiet? Well, to be perfectly frank, I mean, this isn't a very active ward at the best of times. There is a lot of political apathy, and it is one of my aims as chairman to reverse this trend and make it a truly dynamic ward. I will extemporise on my plans later.
If anybody can do it, I'm sure Harold... I mean, Comrade Steptoe can.
Thank you, Comrade Frobisher.
I see. Carry on.
Item 1. The minutes of the previous meeting was read and confirmed as a true record and duly signed. Item 2. Resolution.
Revolution?
Resolution.
Oh, I thought you were getting the bombs out.
Would you like to read a book or watch television or something?
No, I'm all right. This is much funnier. You carry on.
Mr. Harold Steptoe put forward the following resolution. The Ravensbury Ward Labour Party of the Shepherd's Bush constituency deplores the current situation existing in South Vietnam and calls upon the United States government and the Viet Cong to cease hostilities immediately, to withdraw all foreign troops from South Vietnamese soil, and to hold free elections under the supervision of the United Nations as agreed at the Geneva Convention in 1952. The resolution was seconded by Miss Karen Frobisher and was passed unanimously.
It's quite one of the things I like about Steptoe and Son is it's so current, even though you have to like allow for the fact that it's 60 years old. It's contemporary in terms of the references, and I mean
It's mad. It hasn't aged a lot as you think it would be.
no, Enoch Powell gets a mention, who famously a couple of years later would deliver the Rivers of Blood speech
Yeah,
for
what
the
do you say?
Conservatives.
Enoch's dreaming of a white Christmas.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So we've just so they've now started the how would you describe that? The Labour Party committee meeting
yeah.
being held by yeah, I noticed Harold, he's still wearing that Mac.
Well, we've got Dudley Foster
Yeah,
wearing
yeah.
the same Mac, pretty much, isn't he? And
Brilliant.
Dudley Foster, that is his name, isn't it? Dudley
Yeah,
Foster.
that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah. He's in a
he
few episodes, isn't he?
he is, and he looks. There's something about him. He looks well. For a start, he looks like the builder that did our extension a few years ago. For a start, um, but he looks sinister.
Yeah. He could play a villain easily, couldn't he?
He looks not slimy, but just I don't know, like he'd pinch the lead off your roof.
Yeah, I think Albert calls him oily, doesn't he? He says he's smooth as an horse's heel. Old
Yeah,
oily.
yeah,
He's so brilliant actor. I didn't realize. I think Si knew more about him than I did, and he brought up about. I think he killed himself. Only
yeah.
a few years after the final episodes, because he was in other things. He was in sort of Danger Man.
Loads of things. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
loads of things. So yeah,
I think he was. I think he came from a wealthy family as well. So
okay.
I think he had a few bob to rub together, but
Mhm.
obviously had, I guess, stuff going on in his life that,
Mhm.
yeah,
Oh,
he just,
they just mentioned the situation in South Vietnam. So I like the pomposity of him to write to all these different, like heads of state and I think he writes to the United Nations. I mean, what's that going to do?
and yeah, but he can't pronounce some of the names of the heads of state he's written to, like Ho Chi Minh and U Tant, who was the head of the UN, I think at the time.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
So President
yeah,
Johnson, Mr. Cozy Gin in Moscow,
yeah,
Ho Chi Minh in Hanoi, and he's reading it like an inch from his face, and he's Mao Zedong.
yeah, and lovely. The actress
Naris
Damaris
Heyman, yeah.
Heyman, who just again was in so many things over the years. Kind of
Yeah.
slightly, is it unkind to say slightly horse-faced lady?
Yeah, unique looking. I mean, she was in the young ones, wasn't she?
She
Um,
was. She
and
was.
also one foot in the grave.
Yeah. Oh God, she was in the episode where she advertises a pair of shoes in the paper, and Victor goes around and she says, "Yes, my husband's recently died or just died, and he only wore them once."
Hmm.
And Victor walks in the front room, and the husband's there,
He's still
stiff.
sat there wearing them. And she's going, as she's like unlacing the shoes. She goes, "It's what he would have wanted."
But now, wasn't that harking back to the film Stepped on Son Ride Again with Diana Dawes? Do you remember when Harold goes and meets Diana Dawes' character? He's going around on the rounds.
Yeah, yeah.
Wasn't her husband dead as
Oh,
well and still in the flat? Or am I conflating that
I
with?
think at least the doctor they convince the doctor that Albert is dead, and they sort of put him in like a mannequin thing.
Oh
But
yeah,
I need to rewatch it because we are going to review that one, but I haven't seen it for so long, and I'm sort of keeping it so it's sort of a bit fresh. But I do need to to rewatch that
it's
because
better. I think it's better than the first one.
yeah, the first one it was I think there's more going on in the second
Hmm.
ride again. But it's mad. I think the second one was commercially, I think it was a bit of a flop. And most people say that that's their preferred one
Yeah.
compared to the first one. But yeah, so we've got Old Oily now, or Dudley Foster, as we said. He's so smarmy the way he's sort of undermining Harold, and he's sort of only Albert is picking up on it. So he's been quite clever about it.
Yeah, another contemporary reference for the time. Albert mentions the TV show Riviera Police. Did you pick up on
Okay.
that? Because I think Harold's talking about when he was going out canvassing,
Yeah,
and there was very few people sort of answering the door. And I think Albert says, what night was it?" And he said, "Tuesday." And Albert
Oh,
says, well, there you go,
Riviera
Riviera,
Police.
yeah,
Yeah.
which I'd never heard of, and I know my old TV dramas from the 60s. I'd never heard of. I looked it up. It was a short run drama.
Right.
Ended after 13 episodes. It began in August 65 and ended in October. So smack bang when this was, being recorded, at least. Although it aired on Mondays and Wednesdays, not Tuesdays. So, but it was, but Albert implies that it's hugely popular when it clearly wasn't, because it folded after 13
Yeah,
episodes.
once you, because you think they'd say something like Z Cars or something like that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Off the top of my head, but yeah, so I think I don't know if what the character name is, but Damaris Hayman. I mean, she's just worshipping Harold
Yeah.
in this, and she's. I think the old man, he says, feast on that, Harold. It's your birthday. And she's
Yeah,
just
it's
all
a bit
over it.
creepy, that, isn't it?
Especially the age difference. She just always seems like an eternally old woman to me. Daenerys Hayman, obviously she's not, but
Well, I think
couldn't imagine her young.
she was born around about 1930, 31, something like that.
Oh, okay.
So that only makes her in her mid-30s, and probably
Yeah.
the same age as Corbett, to be fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean. She looks like she's older. Yeah.
And she but I mean like some of the ages that the women Harold goes for, I think he's engaged to the one and she's about 20. I mean, it doesn't bother him. He definitely punches above his weight.
He does all right though, doesn't he? He
Yeah.
doesn't seem to want for female company, generally speaking.
Or as he puts it, grumble.
Grumble.
I've had more grumble than you've had hot dinners.
Do you know where that comes from?
No.
You might have to cut this out.
Oh, go on.
These
It's not rhyming slang, is it?
It is rhyming slang. It's grumble and grunt.
You're kidding.
No.
Is
That's what
it?
it is. Yeah. They
Grumble
used to
and
talk
grunt.
about Grumble magazines back in the day.
Yeah, I did not. I've learned that, Tyler. That's brilliant. I've learned something tonight.
There you go.
Grumble and grunt. So I know an old Cockney guy used to call it Frankie Vaughan.
Oh, the Orn. Yeah.
Yeah, the Orn or Porn. Frankie Vaughan.
Thank you,
Want
Vaughan.
some Frankie? So that I think Albert now, we just got to about Albert's just sussed him out now, and he's in his face.
Yeah.
There's some quite good sort of one-liners there, like I'd be obliged if you could just get out. Because they've
That's the thing though, they're always at each other's throats, Harold and Albert, but they've also got each other's backs
definitely,
as well,
yeah.
haven't they?
Yeah, on the sea to Steptoe Street, it's like that. They're sort of up until the end, they're looking after each other, and really they do get together when they need to. I know they sort of hate each other, but they do join forces when they've got to fight an oppressor.
Yeah, I think my favorite episode of Steptoe is "Oh, What a Beautiful Morning."
Yeah.
And again, there you've got Harold spending most of the episode slagging off the family, more or less.
Yeah.
And they are an awful family, the extended family. But there's a point where, because they're at a wake, aren't they? And somebody refers to when Albert goes, this is what we'll do. And Harold is very quick to step in and say no when he's going.
Yeah.
I'm arranging everything. I've got it all planned out, kind of.
Yeah. He's like, yeah. It's brilliant. And he sort of says, yeah, I'm not letting you anywhere near him. I know exactly what I'm going to do with him. He's sort of like you think, oh, that's nice, but it's like such a he's been thinking about this, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's
'Cause,
been planning it, but
yeah,
at the same time, he doesn't want that family
no,
to get involved
no.
because
It's another
yeah.
similar one to that in the robbery with violence where he says about I think he's about going to the hospital in the morning or something, and Harold goes, "I'll take him there now. You can have him
Oh
tonight."
yeah.
He just can't wait to get rid of it. He's just yeah, let's get rid of him. But oh yeah, they are. But they do like you're right though. They do stick together when they need to. I was just having a look
Yes.
at that in the background. They got the picture of Harold Wilson in. We said about the films. In the first film, he's got a big cardboard cutout of Harold Wilson that he puts his ties and his jackets on in his bedroom.
Mm,
I don't know if you've ever noticed
yeah.
that. But,
Yeah.
'cause he was, I mean, Harry Hitchcock, he was a big Labour
Hmm.
supporter, wasn't he?
Hmm.
Because there is a bit in the Robert Ross book where Alan Simpson says about the sort of reaction that they had after this episode went out. I think it's
All right. Okay.
page 113. Yeah, it says Simpson explains this was the perfect example of us mocking the Labour movement rather than the old man's right-wing beliefs. Although Harold Wilson loved our show, I'm not sure he liked this one. This was us mocking Harold's socialism, because it does, doesn't it? You know, it's Harold wanting to do the right thing, and he just gets usurped by, the party that wants a more middle class.
Yeah.
Which, if you cut to the mid 90s,
Yeah. Yeah.
with the new Labour, I mean, they're spot on.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, this was us mocking Harold socialism. I was at the time a member of the Labour Party in Sunbury. In this episode, we took the mickey out of the small ward meeting, with the Labour Party representatives crowding into the Steptoe house and producing these pamphlets decrying Tory policy and putting aside a copy to Mao Zedong and to copy all the communist world leaders. Anyway, the morning after it was first broadcast, I got a phone call from the woman who was the leader of the Labour Party that I was a member of. She was absolutely furious. She accused me of being a traitor to my class. She snootily said, I hope they paid you 30 pieces of silver on
Oh
time.
God.
I mean, it's
That's such a cliche that you're a class traitor,
yeah,
30 pieces of silver. Yeah. That is such a cliche in
and it's just
Labour
sort of
circles.
proving his point, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. 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 I mean, because I think I'm right in saying Galton and Simpson were, uh, I wouldn't say to the lefties, but they leaned to the left, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
And I know that there was, oh, okay. What was the story? In '64, they couldn't broadcast an episode of Steptoe on election day because the
yeah.
government was worried that people would be not would stay in and watch Steptoe rather than go out and vote or something.
Yeah, that's
Was
on
that
one
it?
of the documentaries that it says about how the BBC had a lot of pressure on them to delay either the time or the date, because I think it was a election night and the polls were still
Mm,
open. They believed that working class people, because they work later, they would go home and watch Steptoe,
mm,
and they'd either put off or not go to the voting booths, and they felt that there was a swing of about 20 seats that would affect.
yeah,
I might have made that up there, but I'm sure it was about 20 seats. And in the end, I think Labour won a narrow majority, victory.
yeah, yeah.
But I've heard that story about Hancock, though,
Mm,
about how if Hancock's half hour was on,
mm, yeah.
they delay the time of the voting. But like I said, I think it's got a bit muddled up. It's, but I mean, I could see why. I suppose in those days, you're talking, what were there, 3 channels?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. BBC Two was 64, wasn't it? So
yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not even that. So, I mean, it would have a massive effect. And I suppose that, you know, it wasn't sort of landslide Conservative or landslide, Labour. So they do anything they can to make
It's
sure they
weird though
win.
because the Tories had been in government since
Mm.
51.
Yeah, to the 70s, isn't it?
So similar to now, actually, they'd been in power for best part of 13, 14 years, 13 years, I guess, and it was still a very slim victory for
Victory,
Labour.
yeah.
Good God.
Yeah, no.
after you'd had things like the Profumo scandal and things like that, No, but I think this is a very good episode. Not a lot happens. There's not a lot. There's no particular twist. I love the fact that there's often little twists in Steptoe. Like I'm thinking, is it Porn yesterday when it's not a twist so much, I suppose, but the fact that we discover that Albert, as a youth, had acted in these what the butler saw
Yeah.
flicks.
Yeah, but again, that's another sort of social commentary about how he got to do that, because he said, what did he say? He was stood at the side of the road, the street corner, no work.
Yeah.
And the limo pulls up and says, "Do you want to earn a fiver? Do you want to be a film star?" I mean, why would he say no? It was real poverty, in the 30s. So I suppose, again, it's a bit like this, the social commentary is still relevant. But I suppose the only twist in this one, unless I missed it, was, I suppose, Harold, in his bid for power, just become really disillusioned with it, and it's what Albert said all along.
Yeah, that's true, I suppose. Yeah.
But no, like you said, I think, like, whenever like Sai's favorite episodes, I noticed, are always two-handers. And this is a similar thing, because I think they wrote the two-hander really well, didn't they?
Where they rarely go out of the room, basically.
A bit, again, like going back to Bottom, it's a bit like they were hardly ever out of that universe, where they was always, even the sets in like the shop and on top of the roof, they were, made up sets, they weren't real.
Well, you get that. You get what they call them, bottle episodes. One Foot in the Grave, every season, every series, I should say, would have a bottle episode where it's just one scene, and like Beast in the Cage, where they're stuck in the traffic, or what's the one where
Threatening Weather, is that one?
Yes, where it's just Victor, I think, walking around the house for the whole 30 minutes.
The trial.
The trial.
Yeah.
The Goodies used to do that as well.
Oh, okay.
They'd have what they call a bottle episode, where it would just be the three of them in a room for the whole, because they wanted to save on money, and it meant they'd have bigger budget for more elaborate props and things later on in the series. So they have one episode which was just just them talking or whatever, and I find them some of the best. Just
definitely. I think like with the Desperate Hours,
yes,
it's just one. It's just in that room, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you've got Leonard Roster, and so I think it tests, like, for a start, it tests the script, because if the script's not brilliant, they're going to struggle. It tests the acting ability. It's visually, it tests that sort of, like, we always talk about the background on Steptoe, about how they can have any sort of prop or anything come in, and it makes sense because it's a junkyard. You're not asking, oh, why is that skeleton there, or why is the bear there, or why has he picked up a sword? It's just, you don't think about it, do you? Because it's just there. But no, I think it's probably the best test of any sitcom, really, is to have one scene, one character in some ways.
And I think the fact that both Bramble and Corbett were actors rather than comedians, as you had with Hancock, comedian, and you have actors who are used to being on the stage, used to being able to deliver screeds of dialogue, and that made it distinct from Hancock. Definitely.
Yeah. So I think, any thoughts on that episode? What would you rate it out of 10? We normally do a
well,
it's difficult, isn't it, to rate?
As I say, I mistook it for T for Two, which I really enjoy. I enjoyed this. I would say I'd probably give it a 7.
Yeah.
Give it a 7. It's not one of the most memorable. I'm looking, the episode after this is Pilgrim's Progress, which I think is brilliant. In fact, I should have chosen that, but no, but it's fine. There's some great dialogue there's a lot of animosity between Harold and Albert, a lot of great lines, but It's a I just I don't know. It's a bit.
Was it? Speaking of lines, I think is I don't know if we missed it, but is it my favorite line in it is I think Harold says this it gets right up my shonker.
Oh yeah,
I've never heard of shonker.
yeah. I thought it was honker,
It gets
but
I don't right up my
shonker. Yeah.
It might be honker, but yeah,
Um.
he's I've never heard of that
Oh no,
before.
you're
So
right. No, it is. I've got it written down here. Shonker.
is it
He says.
shonker?
He says. Harold says, whereas my beliefs are sincerely held, the result of years of deep thought, observation, and rationalization, your particular brand of squalid, nasty, antisocial opinion is directly attributable to a basic desire to get right up my shonker. There you go.
Again, it's like that, takes you like on a long sort of journey, command of word power, and then he just drops it down to the shonker.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. It's like a
It's
journey.
what's that line from which episode is it where he says you are morally
Oh yeah.
morally,
Seriously.
spiritually, and physically
Because
a fly blown heap of accumulated filth or something like that.
yeah, because you got teared or something. But that's what frustrates me. Whenever they say they didn't get on, they always quote that or show that clip as if it's like
Yeah,
a behind the scenes clip. But it's part of the script.
of course it
It's
is. Of
not.
course it is.
Corbett didn't make that up.
No.
It was written down. But I suppose they talk about like the venom in which he says it. And then like you get no reaction from Bramble. He just says, "What do you want for your tea?" He just doesn't react to it. But yeah, that's frustrating. But yeah, it's brilliant. Like some of the one-liners, I
I,
think it's up there.
right. I wrote this down as well. Have you ever thought or contemplated having? I mean, can you get condensed milk? A condensed milk sandwich? Have you ever thought about? I mean, what the hell is that?
You can get it in a tin.
I know what
Um,
it is, but I mean, I know what
yeah,
condensed milk is. I know what a sandwich is, but
but
putting them together, I mean, that
no.
is
But it's funny if that links to one of the questions I've got on the quiz.
okay.
So yeah, it's but how would you? It doesn't work in a sandwich. What is he doing to it?
God knows. It's very working class, whatever it is.
It's not even that. It seems like something that they thought was working class that they got wrong. It's
I
almost
th
like
no, I think it probably is something in the back of my mind. I've heard that before somewhere else. You know what I mean? I
it's
think
not like bread and dripping.
if you
No,
get
no.
thick condensed milk, you put it in between two bits of bread, and it's like a sweet, savory
Good
thing. Oh,
God.
God knows. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
milk. Yeah, strange. But I'll tell you what, if we head on over now to the Skinner's Arms, I'll get you a drink in Tyler, my round.
very good.
Uh,
Thank you.
what do you fancy? I think I normally go for a pint of mild in a half pint glass or a drop of gold watch.
Well, I'll have an Esther Ranson, please,
Yeah.
to
Pulls the
reference
gums
bottom.
back of your teeth. Yes, the ransom.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So yeah, I haven't come up with 10 questions. I've come up with 6.
Okay.
I don't know if you've sort of heard on the other episode. So it's just about that specific episode.
Okay.
So yeah, I've got question 1. What is the name of the character played by actor Dudley Foster?
Oh God. It starts with S. Sidewell.
Close. Yeah. Close. Well, it's Mr. Stonelake.
Oh,
Or
Stanley.
as Old Oily as
Kills. Yeah.
yeah. And
God.
he the other part of that question is what other episodes did he star in? I think we did cover him, didn't we? Because he was actually in 3 other episodes.
The Lead Man Cometh, was it? Was that one of them? No.
That was Leonard Rossiter, wasn't it, in that one?
Of course it was. Well, there's a similarity between Rossiter
Yeah.
and
Just
Foster, I
thinking a
think.
lot because he played Welsh Huey.
Yeah.
But I do get Dudley Foster vibes from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good show.
You could easily have played that part. What else was he in? God. What was the one with
The card game.
the card game? Yeah.
Yeah, he's in Full House.
Yeah. Okay. I
played,
don't. I pass. I don't know.
Yeah, a bit of awkward with that, but yeah, he was in Full House. He was in Robbery with Violence. He played the
yeah.
I think I thought he was police. I think he was CID or something, wasn't he? And he also, I couldn't remember what he plays in this, but he's in The Colour Problem.
Right. Yeah. And I heard your episode on Robbery with Violence the other day, so I should have said that, for God's sake. But there you go. Anyway.
That's all right. Next question I've got is, what? This was the sandwich one. What does Harold offer the attendees following the meeting conclusion? Just straight after the meeting's finished, he offered them something which just seems bizarre to me.
Condensed milk sandwich.
All I've got is a banana sandwich, but I'm thinking that could be the radio version.
Oh right, well no, that's why I said condensed milk sandwich, because
so you're right, the TV version is that's weird, it's condensed milk.
So it changed between the TV version and the radio version.
Yeah, I found that on, not a lot changes, but some things they've got to change, because obviously on the radio you can't, it's not visual. But yeah, that's weird that I didn't realise. But yeah, he definitely says banana sandwich, because I always thought that was strange to offer strangers a banana sandwich, but condensed milk.
My brother used to eat banana sandwiches.
Oh,
right, get this right. Banana sandwiches with ketchup.
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Albert
I disassociate myself from my brother.
I don't know where to start with that. You could analyse that, bless him. Okay, so next question. What is Harold wearing during the party meeting? Extra points if you know the brand name.
Oh, it's like a Harold Wilson kind of Mac. And you said it at the beginning in your summary, and I forgot what it is. It starts with G, and I forgot what it's called.
I'll give that. It's the Ganex.
That's it.
Mac.
That's it.
Apparently, it's worth a lot of money. Because sometimes you're sort of, Sawyer's good at this. He looks at what things cost in the 60s compared to now and work out. But yeah, they're worth a lot more now than they were then.
Okay.
I don't know if it was because Harold Wilson, but it'll always be a Harold Wilson Mac.
Yeah, interesting. Harold Wilson, because famously he smoked to pipe when the cameras were running, but smoked cigarettes. He preferred cigarettes, but smoked a pipe. Yeah, he smoked a pipe when he was in public, but cigarettes when he wasn't, because it was all about, not all about, but with how he was very much into sort of like the image.
The image.
He was one of those first politicians to really sort of, so the Mac and I suppose he had these kind of these props almost you'd call them, I suppose, that people identified with him.
Well, it does remind me a bit of, because I remember probably becoming more politically aware mid-90s, and I can remember Tony Blair sort of campaigning when they were now known as New Labour. I can remember he went to a pub and he rolled his sleeves up and he ordered a pint. Yeah. I was thinking, and you could tell that was, he's rolled his sleeves up as if he's just done a shift somewhere. And he's not drinking a Cinzano, he's drinking a pint. And he just looks like he doesn't like it at all. And it looks quite unnatural, and you sort of think, why you're doing that? That's just to get the working class vote.
Well, look at Rishi Sunak, he does that and he doesn't even drink. He poses with pints and he doesn't even drink. Do you remember when, mind you, you're quite a bit younger than me, I think, Darren?
Not a lot.
Okay. When Tony Blair ditched the tie and gave a speech wearing just open-neck shirt, and it was front page news. It was scandalous.
Yeah, and he'd have to have a red tie, wouldn't he?
Anyway, that's another conversation.
That's right. I like to go on a tangent. Next one, okay. So, I think I get this. Name the actress who guest stars as Harold's very keen admirer.
Damaris Heyman.
Yeah, brilliant actress. Yeah, as I said, I can't picture her young.
No, no. She only died like 2 years ago, I think. So
I'm sure Tom mentioned it. Yeah,
she's a fair age. She was 90 then. I guess that would make her 90.
And I've got the final question. So, who was finally decreed as the official Labour candidate for the borough?
Dr. Jeremy Simpson.
Close, you've got it nearly.
Dr. Jeremy, starts with B, maybe. I remember. Go on.
It's Dr. Jeremy Stewart, you did really well to get that close because I watched it 3 times and couldn't remember. I had to get the subtitles on the go. But no, that was good. So yeah, no, similar. I think I'd rate that probably the same as you, probably about a 7. Not as sort of visually appealing as other episodes, and I suppose that's like you said about some of the episodes were sort of lost, but Steptoe did quite well out of that. But yeah, so as I said,
they all exist, don't they, in some shape or form?
Yeah, I think it's someone clever on YouTube has colorized all the black and white ones. And they're worth to watch. They're not sort of digitally remade, but it's just sort of colorized. But I think they're good for people who don't want to watch it in black and white. But I think it adds a lot to the story, the black and white. It just looks a bit grimier.
Yes.
It looks harder.
Yeah.
Tougher times.
No, definitely. So what's your favourite? Are you allowed to say what your favourite episode of Steptoe is of all time, or have you seen?
I think it depends what mood I'm in. I mean, I say the later ones are more watchable. Like what a Beautiful Morning is definitely up there in my top 3.
Yeah, it's my favourite.
Because of Potty Ada.
Rita Webb.
Yeah, Rita Webb. Yeah, one of the somebody, because we've now got the YouTube channel Step Pod, so we've set that up, and somebody reached out, and I think I commented on one of her lines in it, and I think it's David Holt, voice actor. He got back to me and he put on there his Rita Webb, and so I was having a bit of a read about her life, and she sort of always played that same sort of working class character.
Always. She's in the film The Magic Christian. Don't know if you've seen that before.
No, I think I've read about it when I was looking at her filmography, but I haven't seen it.
It's Peter Sellers' film. I love it, but a lot of people hate it.
Okay.
Because it's really fag end of the 60s self-indulgence,
Yeah.
And it's got John Cleese, it's got Spike Milligan, it's got Sellers, it's got Christopher Lee, it's got Roman Polanski,
it's a hell of a cast.
Lawrence Harvey, it's got so many stars, okay? And Rita Webb turns up right at the beginning of it, basically being Ada, the same character, giving a bollocking to Ringo Starr, because Ringo Starr's in it as well. Sorry, Ringo Starr's the co-star of Magic Christian, but she's wonderful. She's absolutely wonderful.
Potty Ada.
And I love. There's a line in that episode when the young lady chats up Harold and says she's going to a little rave up or something. And
that's it. Yeah,
and he thinks
Caroline.
And he thinks he's on he's on a promise, and then Albert basically implies that it could be
could be anywhere. Do you know what that I watched twice?
But then Harold, the way Harold says, "A bleeding family."
Yeah, that's Hancock-esque. But do you know what? I watched that twice and didn't get what he was saying. He's basically saying he could be Caroline's dad.
Yeah. Because
the mother's slept around that much, it could be any of us.
All the menfolk in the family have slept with
this one woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. I mean, that's like the Potty Ada, she does. I gotta be careful what I say if my dad ever listens to this, but she does remind me a hell of a lot of a a relative of mine. Like, she does look a lot like her, and she was a real sort of character. Definitely not showing her knickers to the vicar like Potty Ada, but especially the swearing, like the effing and blinding, and like a real character, like and been through a lot and suffered a lot, and had a sort of tough life, and it got to the age where she didn't sort of give a shit what anyone thought. It was like, you either like me or you don't. Either way, piss off. It was but when she comes back in, Potty Ada, and she goes, "Oh, leaving without me, are you?" And she was like, "No, we don't want any more swearing." She goes, "Call that bleeding swearing?" She goes, "Wait till I get to the cemetery."
And of course, Molly Sugden's in it as well.
Oh yeah,
from Are You Being Served? And she was
Mrs. Slocum.
Mrs. Slocum. Anyway, I mean, no, that probably is my favorite episode of that, and
Desperate Hours.
Yeah, because I love Rossiter, and I just think it's so sad. It's two men who have two other men dependent on them, isn't it? And
Definitely,
they
yeah.
can't escape. Literally, can't
Can't, no.
escape.
They're both, well, they're all locked up really in their own way, you know,
Yeah.
whether they're, in the scrubs or in their life. So, because there's, again, like differences in the radio one. I can't remember the name of the actor who played the old, the old lag sort of character that was with Johnny.
Oh, in the TV series,
In
it
the
was
TV, so yeah.
Devlin. Somebody Devlin. What's his name? Somebody Devlin. I can't think
Oh,
now.
was it? Yeah,
JG
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 Devlin.
Devlin. Yeah.
Well, in the radio show is a different guy, and you can tell he's a younger guy trying to play an older guy, and he doesn't work anywhere near as well.
Right.
Whereas the TV version, he's just there's perfection, and it's just the way they do it, and you can see Harry H. Corbett stepping up his game in that episode because he
Yeah.
realizes he's like, I've got a man here that can act. This is, and I got to show this is my show, and Leonard Roster really goes for it, doesn't he?
He does. I'm trying to think. Was that? I think that was prior to Rising Damp. I think
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So was
certainly
it Rising
before
Damp? Late
Reginald Perry.
70s?
Hey,
Late 70s, was it
Rising
Rising
Damp
Damp?
began, I think, 74, 75.
Yeah, okay.
I think.
'Cause it was weird how I don't know if you heard it, we were talking about how Wilfred Bramble played a stage play of Rooksby. And
Oh,
it was basically Rigsby
the Banana
before.
Box.
Yeah, but they couldn't give him the role. He was brilliant apparently as a role, but they couldn't give it to him because he was typecast
Oh, right.
as Albert. They said it wouldn't have worked, people would be you couldn't play two different old men.
Well, there's another one. Again, you're talking about older men with younger men in comedies. Rigsby and Allen
Yeah.
in Rising Damp. Okay, they're not that much of a double act, but they do have a lot of scenes together
Mm. Yeah, and I
where you
love
got
those scenes, yeah, where they're
mm,
just sort of chatting in a room and Rigsby's sort of he's trying to I suppose he's trying to give him advice, like have you seen a Permissive Society one?
yeah, yes,
Yeah, and Alan's
yeah.
just making up all these different women and talking about the erogenous zones, and he's like, "Is someone near the equator?" It's
which was then basically just there were 3 episodes of Rising Damp that were just turned into the feature film. They
yeah.
just sort of glued them all together and made that
Mm.
feature film, which I don't mind actually. I quite like the Rising Damp film, but
It's strong enough to work as a film, and
yeah.
obviously, sadly, Richard Beckinsale was gone by that point.
Oh, of
Um,
course, yeah, it was
but
Christopher Strowley, wasn't it? Yeah.
yeah, so but I do like we were saying about this. They were obsessed with comedy, like sitcoms being made into films in the 70s, weren't they?
Yeah.
You had on the buses, like there was Rising Down, there was Porridge, Steptoe did too.
Yeah, I mean, it
Oh,
was
you've
on
been
the you
served.
blame on the buses because famously the first on the buses film was the second most popular film in Britain in 1971, I
Good
think,
God.
after Diamonds Are Forever, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and then they had like 2 other sequels, but off the back of that, everyone all wanted a bit of the action, so you had all these sitcom spin-offs. And as I say, next episode of Goonpub, we're talking about the Man About the House film, which is one of the few
Mm.
what I would call successful transfers from screen to film, from TV screen to film, I should say. But yeah, there was a lot of. I mean, the A Being Served film is dreadful.
I didn't realize that existed until recently. I think when we were doing the Three Comedos, I think it came up. But I thought that sounds god awful.
Yeah, I mean, I love the TV series, although
Mm.
not so much now, maybe as I've got older. But um, there's a handful of what I would call decent sitcoms that they made into films.
Mm.
Likely Lads,
Yeah, yeah.
Porridge, Man About the House, and that's probably it. Oh, Steptoe.
Yeah.
Well, the
Steptoe. Yeah.
Steptoe, I guess. Yeah, as well.
Yeah. Definitely Porridge, I think, worked really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the I was just trying to think of the one. Like, did they make I want to rewatch it because I saw it a bit when I was a kid, the series, but I've never seen about it's with oh god, what's it called? It's where they're in the jungle. And it's Windsor Davis as a sergeant
Oh,
major.
it ain't half hot, man.
That's it. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. But did they make a film of that? I don't think they
No,
did they?
no.
So I think I'm
Which is
surprised they didn't.
surprising actually, because that would be ripe for making into a film, I would have said.
Yeah. Mm.
That's actually, I've rewatched some of those recently.
But yeah, do they still hold it? Because the problem is this. I remember seeing when, oh god, what's his name? The short chap in it,
Or Don Estelle.
Don Estelle. Yeah, I think when he passed away, I think he did like an interview the last few months of his life, and he said about how it's never been shown on TV these days, because of the political correctness sort of thing, and and it doesn't age well, especially with the racist or the racial comments, I should say.
Well, it hinges on the fact that, I mean, there are a number of Indian characters in it, but the major Indian character is played by the actor Michael Bates in Brownface.
Yeah,
he was in the first couple of series of Last of the Summer Wine as well.
yeah.
But actually, if you put that to one side, Windsor Davis in that series is phenomenal.
Lovely boys.
He is absolutely. I mean, the rest of it. I mean, even you've got Melvin Hayes playing and more or less an outrageously camp
Very
character.
camp.
But Windsor Davis is just, he drives that show. He's
brilliant. Yeah. I can remember like not much of it. I remember the one, is there a young lad and his rumors that he's his son.
Yes, that's
He
right.
used to go, I know your mother very well. Lovely boy, lovely shoulders, show him off. He's always
That's
going on about
right.
his shoulders.
Yeah, because what's he called? Sergeant Wilson. That's the character. I think is it Wilson?
Is it Wilson?
Williams. Sergeant Williams.
Oh, Williams. Yeah.
And he's equally contemptuous of all of them, apart from the one young guy who he thinks could be his son.
Yeah.
So he shows him sort of special, gives him special treatment, if you like.
I suppose it's a bit like the Wilson Pike sort of.
It is actually, yeah.
Thing in it, yeah.
It is.
I never thought of that, but no, I just used to remember that. I remember Melvin Hayes because I think he said that he just played. I think because he'd served time in the forces, and I think he said he just did what he did in the during the war. But I think a lot of the beauty of those actors, a lot of them had been through, war, so they knew what it was like, and they knew these characters. Like I'm sure Windsor Davis knew the character that he was playing.
Well, if they hadn't been,
Sergeant Major,
if they hadn't been in the war, they'd have certainly done national service, which is basically what the TV sitcom The Army Game is about. Which we're going down a real rabbit hole here if we start on that. But yeah, national service, I think, was abolished. I think John Lennon missed doing national service by months, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And if he'd done national service, then arguably the Beatles would not have happened. Or at least the Beatles as we know them would not have happened.
Yeah. So I think that's we've reviewed that episode now, Tyler. So yeah, any news? What's the next step for the Goon Pod?
I've got lots of episodes scheduled, some recorded, some to be recorded. As I said, listeners to this podcast might be interested in the recent one we did on Associated London Scripts, where we talk a lot about Ray and Alan. And in fact, I'm going to be recording an episode in a couple of weeks about the recently discovered Hancock's Half Hour episode in which Harry Seacombe briefly appears. Which, which again is obviously Galton and Simpson. But I've got a lot planned, a lot scheduled, and I'm going to be putting out some additional kind of non-Goon related podcasts from summer, which will be just talking about general British comedy films without Sellers, Milligan, Seacombe, or Benteen in them. So
okay.
That's the proviso. It can be any British comedy film, but cannot have a goon in it, kind of thing. So just so I've got shows scheduled covering things like Kind Hearts and Coronets, Shaun of the Dead, would you believe, which is really
cool. Shaun of the Dead, yeah.
For me. David Renwick and Andrew Marshall, who wrote obviously wrote lots of things, but they wrote Whoops Apocalypse, which was a TV sitcom. Yeah, there was a feature film made of that in the 80s, and they're both coming on to talk about that feature film.
Oh, brilliant!
And yeah, we've got so a lot coming up. If you like this, if you like Steptoe and Son, we're regularly talking about Steptoe and Son on GoonPod because it's such a intrinsic part of the fabric of British comedy. So yeah, I think if you like this podcast, you probably like GoonPod.
Yeah, no, so I think we're about to be chucked out of the Skinner's Arms. So, but yeah, again, thanks for coming on, Tyler. It's been brilliant. I've really enjoyed reviewing this.
Thank you, Darren. Thank you.
No, it's okay. Just to let everyone know, we are now on. I think the last episode we didn't have a YouTube page yet, but yeah, with Steptoe and Son is now. It's got a YouTube channel as well as the all the other socials. So yeah, if you could give us a listen, and I'd love it. I love a comment, positive and negative. So yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you. See you soon.